Hey folks, I'm going to try to give you a quick rundown of how to do toner transfer for acid etching here real quick. I've been getting some really clean results with this method, so I thought I'd share it with you guys. I made a video of it about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, and it wasn't a very good video. This one won't be either, but materials you need. A can of white lacquer. You could use a different color, but white is probably the easiest for our uses. I am using this acrylic lacquer. I've found pretty much anything that says lacquer on the bottle will work if you use 91% isopropyl alcohol as your solvent. That's key. 70% won't work for this process. You got to have 91% isopropyl and something that says lacquer on the can. Here's the this one works pretty good if you want to see the. It is a Rust-Oleum product, and there is the number. Okay, what I've got here, this is one of the plates that I turn into an enclosure for my pedals. I bend it in a brake. It's a 2-piece enclosure. This is the top piece. So I've got graphics here on, let's see if you guys can see it. I got my graphics here on a piece of PCB transfer paper that I got off Amazon. It's like 10 bucks for 20 sheets, I think. The other thing I have here is a 3M Scotch brand, just $20 laminator. You can get that at Walmart, or if you're in the US, might be $25 by now. Here's my old one. It just died on me last night. That's after about 6 years of use. So for 20 bucks, you can't beat that. Okay, shake up your lacquer. You're gonna put a real thin coat on this piece of metal. You can do this with PCB as well. And then you're gonna lay it right on your PCB transfer, or your toner transfer. So we get a thin coat on here. You want it to be, I'd call it semi-opaque. You don't want it to be very thick, because what you're gonna wanna do is let it dry until it just skins over just a little bit. Like, it'll go from looking wet to just having a skin of dryness. It'll still be tacky. You wouldn't want to touch it. And that's how it's going to serve as a medium to transfer our toner. If you get this layer too thick and it doesn't dry good, it will drag during the transfer process. Okay, I've got it pretty good. Now, the way I do this process is I have holes already cut in my piece, so I can line them up really easily on the transfer piece that I'm doing. Oops, I got this one a little messed up. But be careful in this part. This part is critical. Okay, now, another piece of material you're going to need is some painter's tape. Or Scotch tape, whatever you got, will probably work. Press this down, fold over one side or the other. I just usually do the shortest side. Leave some overlap when you cut your paper. And then I like to put a piece of tape on here a long ways so I can kind of pull on it, make sure I get that tight. You want that lined up just perfectly as far as against your piece, or it'll get messed up in the next step, which the next step is we send it through the laminator. So I got this laminator on the high setting, which is 5 millimeters thick for 5 millimeter thick stuff, which is probably more like cardstock. Oh yeah, this was, well, that's going through there. This is a cookie sheet, but it's a steel one. And I've got these just craft magnets. That's how I hold down my transfer paper, because it tends to roll up, this yellow transfer paper off Amazon. The other thing you can use is if you have shipping labels, like full sheet or half sheet shipping labels. The backing paper from those, if you actually print on the waxy side, like where you peeled the shipping label off, you got to take the shipping labels off. But if you use that backing paper and print onto that waxy side, that works really good for toner transfer. I use an HP printer, the HP toner, the name brand toner, not the aftermarket stuff. Works real good for this. Aftermarket stuff won't stick to the transfer paper. It just all drags off. One trick I use on that sometimes if I'm having trouble with that is I'll just open a blank document and print off like 4 blank documents just to get the printer warmed up, and then I might even print on a regular sheet of paper my my actual design to make sure everything's good and hot in there. I run this through 3 times. Sometimes I flip it over. It doesn't really matter. I don't find different results either way. But get your printer warmed up good, and that'll stop the dragging sometimes. So I run this through here at least 3 times. This is super hot right now, like it's uncomfortable to touch, so I'm sure it's good. And I think the pressure of the rollers in there is what really aids in this process. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our alcohol ready. Now this felt like when I laid it on here, I might have laid it on when I laid the piece onto the transfer paper. It felt like I might have laid it on there just a little bit too soon. And the timing is just, that's the most critical piece of this. If you mess it up, if we pull this off here and some of the toner's messed up, don't try to fix it. At this point, if it hasn't transferred perfectly, take some acetone, wash the whole thing off, and start over. Okay, and here I've got some isopropyl where I've done this before. You can kind of reuse the isopropyl, but once it starts to get a bit of lacquer in it, it stops working. So you need to kind of refresh it with some new in there. Okay, I can see there might be a hair got under here. We'll see. Now ideally, if I pull this away, all the toner should be on here except the spots where I have holes drilled. So you should just see some circles and dots in here, and all the graphics should be completely transferred if we did it right. So it looks like maybe I did not lay that on there too soon. It's a little sticky right there, but it should just come right off. You don't need to soak it in water or anything like that with this method. So you can see the paper. All that's left there is the holes that I had drilled in it. Perfect. Get you some gloves for this because isopropyl will, especially this 91%, will dry your skin out really bad. So I just squirt a little bit extra in there, swish it around. Now the key here, what's going to happen is this alcohol is going to cut the lacquer, but it won't cut the toner. So all your toner will stay on there. It's like magic. See that? See how it just wipes off? These are ridiculous gloves. I hope they're not super noisy on the video. They're super noisy here. I ran out of vinyl and nitro gloves yesterday, so I'm using these lunch lady gloves. Now the key here is use enough alcohol and keep your rag or paper towel, whatever you're using, wet enough that you're just basically transferring alcohol from place to place. You're not rubbing anything off. You're just wiping, because you don't want to accidentally scratch the lacquer, and this alcohol will completely dissolve the lacquer. All right, I'll wipe this off. Like I said, I use this exact same process for PCBs, and it works great. You've got to be a little more, got to fuss a little bit more and be a little bit more delicate with PCB because you're using such fine lines. The bolder your lines are for toner transfer, the better they transfer because they're not as delicate. So there it is, all transferred and ready to. I'll just use some packing tape on the back of this to keep it from etching. Drop it in the etching tank and should etch just fine. That's all.